Don't Worry Darling. Now I remember thinking about this film a few months ago, and it was something that kind of really caught my eye and my attention, because of course it's got Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, two young actors, and they appeared to be like this, you know, like golden couple, so to speak, at least on screen. But beyond the two leading stars who were in the film, there was some intrigue about this project as well, because it's obviously got a very sentimental title, you know, Don't Worry Darling. You know, you'd think that it was something very, you know, emotional, but it's a psychological thriller, which made me think, after watching the trailer in the build-up to this film, that it would feel quite Hitchcockian, and it would have a few little twists that you would normally see in a Darren Aronofsky film. So it would develop the characters, and it would, you know, have the suspense throughout the whole course of the film, and then when the twist eventually happens, that it would just, you know, unravel a whole new perspective where it would just be a bit warped and a bit twisted. So there was actually a degree of interest in this film. So Don't Worry Darling tells the story of a 1950s housewife called Alice who lives with her husband in a utopian experimental community. However, she begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. So the film is set in a fictional town called Victory, and when you look at it, it just appears to be this great paradise that it would have everything that you could possibly want and need in life. However, when you've got a film that is like this, you know that when you have a film that presents something of, you know, something that's so great and it's glorified this much, that deep down the secrets are that it really isn't what it's made out to be. And the film in many ways did feel like it was something that was done by Alfred Hitchcock because of how they utilised the suspense. It kind of grabbed your attention and you started to build that intrigue and that excitement as to what the twist is going to be, who might be involved, and how it just erupts. I mean, something symbolic I noticed straight away as I watched this film in terms of, you know, that the town isn't what it is made out to be, is the representation of dancing and ballet. And what I mean by that is dancing is an art. People have to go out and entertain, and that can often be a mask. And I think the fact that because the dancing sequences are relayed back quite frequently in certain sequences such as hallucinations and dreams, it is like a bridge almost in between what's fictional and what's real. And that's where I think Olivia Wilde did well in giving us those little hints and suggestions without giving too much away. And as I've mentioned, there was a very intriguing build up to this film and how the suspense was utilised, and also through the performances, which I'll talk a bit about later on. But when things unravelled, I just felt a little bit disappointed. It didn't kind of meet the expectation of, you know, feeling that shock that you would normally feel in a film like this. I think the issue was that it fell apart in the end, and that left me a little bit dissatisfied and disappointed, considering how much of an intrigue the build-up to the eventual twist was. I think, if anything, without giving too much away, it was the lack of context that disappointed me, because it was the hidden secrets before the twist happened that kind of got people interested, but when it was there in front of us, there wasn't much. It just lacked that icing on the cake at the very end, and that's what I think pushed down a few points for me. But that being said, it doesn't take anything away from the production values of the film and how it was shot, because it was absolutely brilliant. The art direction was stunning, the costumes were really good as well, that gave us that illusion kind of factor, and also the cinematography was good too. And the film was directed by Olivia Wilde, who also had a supporting role in this film. And I think what I particularly praise Olivia Wilde for in her direction of this film was the attention to detail in the suspenseful and grim moments, because that made us uncomfortable as viewers, but it also made us excited and intrigued for what would happen, you know, as the film progressed. But obviously, as I mentioned earlier, it didn't really quite live up to that, so I think that's where it fell short. And I think from her point of view that in terms of the execution of the film, that it could have been a whole lot better. And I think a filmmaker like Jordan Peele could have pulled it off, especially how he's made films so far that have been, you know, build-ups and, you know, anticipation and suspense, and exposed a twist that had a lot of context. And I think that's what this film lacked in terms of it being a really, really good thriller. Context. And don't get me wrong, there were moments that explained some things, but they didn't kind of paint the bigger picture of why and how, if anything. Not just what, but why and how. But I think one particular production aspect that I think goes unnoticed is the soundtrack. And I thought it was really, really good from John Powell. And I think particularly in the suspenseful moments, the soundtrack really added to that psychological factor. So credit to John Powell for the brilliant score. And I also like the way that the hallucinations and the flashbacks were edited in a very crisp and very slick kind of way. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, it had two young stars in it in their 20s, and the first one I'm going to talk about is Florence Pugh, who gave an absolutely superb performance in this film. I thought she was absolutely fantastic, and she is very quickly becoming one of the most popular stars in Hollywood today. And Florence Pugh really was the heart and the soul of this film. Some critics might even say that she carried the film through her performance because that's how good she was. But the point is, I just felt the way that she just conveyed herself into this character, particularly through her American accent, which was absolutely brilliant once again. And I think with her performances over the past couple of years, she's able to pull off other accents beyond a traditional British one. Of course, we've seen in Black Widow and Hawkeye the Russian accent that she can do, and now the American one. She really was a convincing American living in the 1950s. She's just an absolutely fantastic actress. She really was able to give us a character who we could feel really sorry for, and we could just feel the emotions of the character and the trauma that she's going through, and also just the chemistry that she had with Harry Styles as well. I'm starting to warm to Harry Styles as an actor, if I'm being honest, because I think he's starting to show that he's more than just being this boy band member in One Direction, that he is an actor who has got something in him. And I think why Harry Styles was cast in this film was because outside of cinema, he's known as this pretty boy from One Direction, and because this character in this film is like a pretty boy young man living in the 1950s, I think the perception of how people look at Harry Styles is what encouraged the production studio to go, maybe this is the guy who we can have as this character. And from an acting point of view, I thought he worked quite well with Florence Pugh, and they did, like I say, share good chemistry. And I also really enjoyed Olivia Wilde's performance, who was of course the director of the film too. And I think Chris Pine's performance is worth mentioning as well, because he gave us a very charismatic performance, but it was also very mysterious, especially when he was playing a character who was the leader. So I think Pine's charisma in this role was like a mask as to who he really was and who other people were too. So that's what I think was good about the casting choices in this film. So overall, Don't Worry Darling was a good film. I did enjoy it. It was entertaining, particularly in the first hour, an hour and a half, but it was somewhat wasted in the end in terms of the execution of the twist. It was building up to the point where things would really get interesting, and it just felt flat, and it just didn't quite deliver what I thought it would have done in terms of context, in terms of emotion, in terms of drama, in terms of suspense. And that was why I walked out of the cinema thinking to myself, I'm not entirely satisfied with how that film ended, given how much intrigue there was in the build-up to it. And to be fair, you could tell where this film took inspiration in films such as The Truman Show, Get Out, and also Black Swan. And while it did lack originality in the narrative at times, it was still entertaining to watch, and I particularly loved Florence Pugh's performance. What did you think of Don't Worry Darling? Were you a little bit disappointed with the ending as well, or did you actually enjoy the whole thing? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did go on to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell ticked so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.